All right, so today we're going to be giving a presentation about the funding planning costs for water infrastructure. We're here at the Environmental Facilities Corporation, and we're also going to be joined by the Department of Health and, Department of Environmental Conservation and Department of State. Before we get further in the presentation, we're just going to do some brief housekeeping. If you've got questions, feel free to post them in the chat. We may have an opportunity to get back to you before the end of the presentation. However, at the end, we're going to ask that you save most of your questions for that point where we can answer it for everybody's benefit. At that point, you can either post in the chat or ask to be unmuted, and you can ask your question then. All right. So we're going to give a brief overview of Environmental Facilities Corporation, or EFC, and then we're going to present on our Engineering Planning Grant, or EPG. Then we're going to turn it over to DEC to talk about their NPG grant, and then the Department of State to talk about their Local Government Efficiency Program. So EFC is a huge funder for water infrastructure in the state of New York. We've got basically three major areas that we work with. We have the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, both of which provide low-cost capital for municipalities to do clean water and drinking water projects. And finally, we do a lot of different water grant programs as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Brian to talk about the engineering planning grants.
Good morning. So one of the programs EFC runs here is the engineering planning grant. This is really for wastewater or clean water projects. And we really use this program to help communities identify their issues, and then really as our feeder system for our financing and our other grants, it's really that first step to getting, identifying your issues, like I said, and then, creating that project that would come to EFC for funding. The previous round we just awarded had $3 million. And there's two different cost categories that we award typically. It's either $50,000 or $100,000. So most fall into that $50,000 range, but the $100,000 are reserved for I&I or inflow and infiltration projects that are required by either an order of consent or a SPDES violation. The program is an 80% grant with a 20% local match. And then we just have a requirement at the bottom there. You'll see no more than 2 active EPGs at one time per community. That's really to keep the consulting engineers and the communities focused on the current awards and, completing those reports and getting them into the system for funding. So the main eligibility requirement, other than the wastewater side of things, is your community's median household income. We have 2 ranges. One is for basically upstate, and that's 90,000, and then the downstate, which is Long Island, Mid-Hudson, and New York City, kind of that Hudson Valley and down, is $110,000. We use that based off of ACS data, and really it's for our communities, these lower income communities, to help them get that first step of identifying issues with their wastewater. So just touch briefly here upon some eligible activities. We're really looking at the planning side of things. Design is further down the road. You can deal with that under the financing once you get going. But things that we've seen, upgrades at your wastewater treatment plant, trying to identify where your I&I is coming from, or just, kind of system evaluations, inventories or conditions that you just have, you have some aging infrastructure and you want to see how it's holding up. We've seen some CCTV or smoke testing be included in some of these reports. We have a template, actually, I should preface this. Right on our website, there's an engineering report template that these projects must follow. And it really includes a lot of these. It touches on almost all the major categories that we have. And then in addition to that project description or what your main piece of what you're looking to do, we'll ask you to evaluate alternatives, recommend capital improvement projects. Environmental review can be included. It's all at what pace your project is going at. And then, like I said earlier, that design and construction costs on the engineering side are not eligible for this. They're at a later stage. And then as far as our grant priorities for this, really looking at projects or communities that have issues identified. There's consent orders. We know there's some health benefits to improving those. Those rank the best, followed by the speedies permit violators after that. And then, it kind of gets into that upgrade or replacing wastewater systems, constructing new treatment plants or addressing failing systems for septic where, you might be able to extend a line and pick up some septic so they're on a main treatment pollution plant now. And then, looking at your watershed implementation plan and seeing where you can address some pollutants there. And then some of the requirements, like I said, the template is on our website, and I would say use that as our main criteria. But some high notes here. Once you follow that, you're going to look at storm or flood resiliency. How can you increase that as, the storms are just becoming more pervasive and higher intensities. So we're always looking to see where we can improve and build for the future. Consider green infrastructure or green-gray combinations for some of your stormwater solutions, and then provide an overall plan and map. So everything's identified, especially with the I&I projects. One thing we have seen is some communities, when they apply, they put their whole system-wide or community-wide area or infrastructure for the evaluation. Do a cost analysis first. Might be better to phase that and hit certain areas because you will only get one EPG grant for that I&I if you do the overall. And in some cases, we've seen where it's not enough money because they're larger systems. And then we asked for some alternative analysis reviews. There is a no action alternative, but if you just leave it there, it's going to get kicked back with a comment from us to elaborate more. So look into green infrastructure, look at repair replacement for some new construction, maybe look at some energy efficiency options, regional consolidation we've seen in some areas, and then, yes, the smart growth alternatives as well as centralized and decentralized systems. Just go through this and make sure this is the best option for the community. One of the requirements from the program, since it's federal funding, is architectural and engineering procurement, or we call it A&E procurement. It's a qualification-based review. It's not a low bidder requirement, but it does require that the community put out an RFQ for eligible engineering firms. And what it's designed to really help the community get the best value and see what else is out there. We've seen many communities that work specifically with one engineering firm, which can be great. They have familiarity, they know the system, but this also encourages those communities to look outside the box, get the qualifications. There may be someone better, there may not, but at least you did the review. You saw what some other costs may come in. Maybe you can negotiate your costs down. It's really based on getting the community's best value for the grant. And like I said, that's a federal requirement. So that is required for every single EPG or any federal funding through EFC.
Great. Thank you, Brian. This is Nick from EFC. I just wanted to quickly chime in here to mention that engineering costs are reimbursable under both the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. There are just two caveats here. They must, any contracts that are going to be reimbursed must include EFC's terms and conditions. And then secondly, it must have followed A&E procurement, as Brian just discussed. So those guidelines are available on our website to take a look at it. If you're interested in having those costs be reimbursed, I would suggest reaching out to our community assistance teams, and we can set up a consultation with staff just to confirm that everything's in line. At this point, I'll turn it over to DEC.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lauren Townley. I'm a section chief with the DEC Division of Water, and I'm going to touch on our non-agricultural non-point source planning and MS4 mapping grant, which we also refer to as NPG. So our NPG program was modeled off of the EPG program through EFC, but primarily focused on non-point source projects. So we help pay for initial planning and design of 17 different types of non-point source project types, and then also have funding available for municipalities that are regulated under our municipal separate storm sewer system or MS4 general permit. This is an annual program. We do offer it through the consolidated funding application, which typically opens in May and is open for applications through the end of July. We typically have up to $3 million available for both project types. And for our planning grant, whether it's the mapping or the non-point source reports, there's a 10% local match requirement. So for both eligible applicants include municipalities as well as soil and water conservation districts. For the non-point source planning reports, awards are available of up to $50,000. We have a larger comprehensive stream corridor study that is a maximum award of up to $75,000. And I'm not going to read through all of the different categories. As I mentioned, there's 17 total. And we are continuously looking at adding report types based on the need that's been identified over time. So this has grown year to year. But you will notice that most of these categories align with DEC's implementation grant, which is called the Water Quality Improvement Project Grant Program. So we are hoping to set up a project pipeline essentially where folks can come in and apply for the planning under this grant opportunity and then be ready to go to apply for the implementation, particularly under our non-point source category under WQIP. There are a couple of categories that overlap with other agency grants as well that can help you get ready for multiple different types of grant applications. And then for the mapping, municipalities that are regulated by that general permit are eligible to apply, as well as soil and water conservation districts applying on behalf of those regulated operators. If a municipality is applying alone, a maximum grant is available of $75,000. And then if it's a collaborative where multiple municipalities are working together to complete the mapping, it's up to $400,000 per collaborative. And then for mapping, just an overview of what's the expectation at the end. It's a final map report, a GIS format in particular. That's what we're looking for. We do encourage the cooperation, those collaboratives. They do score better in our scoring matrix. We're looking for expansion or new GIS mapping, and mapping refers back to the permit requirements. And just a couple of examples from 2024. So we are hoping to announce our 2025 awards in the next couple weeks. But from our 2024 round, we have a variety of different options that we wanted to highlight. So one example was Erie County did a Stormwater Coalition mapping project for $400,000. And then an example of a single municipality, Town of Wallkill, coming in to complete their MS4 mapping. For non-point source reports, so Village of Waverly in the southern tier got funded for a stream corridor assessment, and then Town of Westbrook up in the North Country is completing culvert studies to look at undersized or culverts that are in disrepair.
Hi, good morning. I'm Carl Ublocker from the Department of State, and I will be discussing a couple of our grant programs, two of which we currently have open. Our regular LGE cycle has just opened up, and we will be accepting applications until February 4th of 2026 for this grant program. Our mission is to help or assist local governments to implement and develop new opportunities for savings and to modernize service delivery, and also to inform local governments, officials, and boards. For 2025, we have $8 million available, and it's broken into two categories. We have a planning category and an implementation category. It's essentially $7.2 million for implementation and up to $800,000 for planning projects. This application will be run through the CFA portal, and as I previously mentioned, it'll be open until February 4th. Local government applicants essentially must be considered a municipality, town, village, county, city, public libraries, depending on how that they are chartered. There's several different ways, most of which are eligible, but there are a couple of ways of the charter that are not eligible applicants. But also school districts, BOCES, special districts, water, sewer authorities, regional planning boards, fire districts, and water and wastewater districts are all included in that. Eligible expenses include capital and equipment, transitional personnel for up to 3 years, contractual and professional services. For planning projects, it's capped out at $20,000 per municipality per project. A municipality can apply for more than one project. Maximum of $100,000 per project. One of the requirements is that you have a partner, which would be another municipality, in order to apply. For planning projects, it's a 50% match. However, if a plan leads to implementation that is also funded through the LGE program, you will get approximately 80% of that back, so that it would end up being a 90-10 split, just like the implementation projects, which are capped at $250,000 per municipality per project, and a total of up to $1.25 million for a project. Well, one of the subcategories that we have is a qualification grant, and this would be essentially a 1-year grant for up to $25,000 for a regional planning board or a county leading a regional project to evaluate and select a project for the next round of the LGE program. These separate cooperative applications include expected number of co-applicants, the number of services and functions to be looked at, regional planning experience, proposed deliverable, and a budget and work plan. One of our other grant programs that we have open, and this one is a revolving deadline. The deadline for this is the first Wednesday of each month, and it is also currently open. And this one is for a local government, a special district consolidation or dissolution. These are not competitive. You just have to meet certain parameters in order to be eligible. And the maximum for this is $100,000 for a project, and that would be broken down into $50,000 for a study or $50,000 for implementation. And again, eligible applicants for this one would be special districts, villages, or towns. And it would have essentially the same eligible expenses as our regular LGE program, including contractual, capital, construction and equipment, and transitional personnel, also for up to 3 years.
Great. Thank you so much, Colonel. This is Nick with EFC again. I just wanted to quickly mention another opportunity that we work on through the community assistance teams in partnership with Homes Community Renewal. It's the Community Development Block Grant. There is funding for public infrastructure under this program for water systems, sewer systems, and stormwater management. There are awards of up to $2 million available. Just one thing to note on this program, it is geographically limited, so there are only specific areas in which applicants can come from. There are also MHI requirements as well. So those guidelines are available on our website, but I just wanted to touch on one of their pieces. They are community planning funding. So there is awards of up to $50,000 available for preliminary engineering for water, sewer, and stormwater projects to help you get your project off the ground. And so this is important to note that it's available for drinking water and wastewater. If you're interested in this program further, please reach out to us for a consultation and we can set up a discussion with Homes and Community Renewal directly. At this point, I'll turn it over to Gabby to discuss our community assistance program.
Hi, everyone. Yep, so Gabby here. So if you're not familiar, we are part of the community assistance team here at EFC, and so we're here to help municipalities across New York State access state and federal funding. So we were created by Governor Hochul to build on EFC's technical assistance program just to help those communities. And so while our focus has been small, rural, and disadvantaged communities, we have expanded to include the entirety of New York State. So any municipality within the state can come to us for that technical assistance. So our teams are available for consultations with the community and virtually. And so as you've seen here, we partner with many New York State agency partners, so DEC, DOH, DOS, and HCR. We also the QR code here will allow you to request a meeting so we can discuss EPG, any of the other grant funding programs offered in the presentation, and then we can also talk about any of our other funding programs. You can also sign up for emails and register for webinars using this QR code, and then our contact information is at the bottom. And then so we do host quite a bit of programs, I'd say. So we have hosted other webinars and have recorded them. So we have our stormwater funding one, hardship, IUP, funding through DAC, all on our website. And then we will also be having our final Q&A session of the year where you can bring in any questions related to water infrastructure funding to our Q&A session on December 17th. Yeah. For more information about CATS and EFC and our eligible programs, feel free to review our program guide. It's on our website, and you can use this QR code to get there. That goes over the types of programs we have, eligible activities, as well as eligible applicants, and the award amounts based on the program. And then you can also sign up for our emails to be notified of our grant announcements, webinars, other events, upcoming deadlines, all that good stuff, using that QR link on the right side of the screen. So yeah, thank you for joining us. I'll turn this over to, thank you for joining us. This is our email, the QR code to our website. And now I will turn it over to Nick.
Yes, so we'll open up to any questions that you might have.